Hello, welcome to InFocus Recouched. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
Now, things are going to get a bit random on the program today. We've got a segment from Doc Wright on what your family doctor probably isn't telling you. And we'll hear from Pastor Sammy Lee on the links between Chinese characters and the ancient biblical stories.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. First up though, let's check out this interview with author Roy Williams, who has a passion for Aussie politics and Australia's Christian heritage. Now Roy, you were a lawyer by trade originally, but you've given that all away to write, and this is your latest offering, In God They Trust, tracking the faith or non-faith of Australia's Prime Ministers since, Federation 1901?
That's right. I cover every Prime Minister we've had, bar the 4 who were just in for a week or two. All 23 of them, their religious beliefs, or lack thereof.
Oh, wow, okay. So, I don't know how it's possible to summarise, that many, Prime Ministers quickly, but has there been sort of a trend or a flow through that history?
Yeah, there is a trend, Kent, and it's this, that our Prime Ministers overall were more religious people, more religiously minded people than the average Australian citizen of their own era. Yes.
That's quite surprising.
So it was surprising. I found plenty of surprises as I went into doing the research in this book. Number of PMs I'd assumed at best were sort of formal Christians, notional Christians, but when I drilled into their lives, I found that their faith was very real.
So tell me, Roy, we've had, I guess, pretty much 2 streams of politics going through, more of a conservative stream and a sort of a Labor-oriented, possibly socialist stream in some cases.
Christian socialists.
Christian socialists. Are these Prime Ministers more tending to one or the other through Australia's history?
No, that's interesting. There's an almost even split between, it's very bipartisan. So of the 23, I actually classified 12 as being rock solid Christians. And of those 12, it's interesting, 5 were from the Labor Party.
Yeah.
4 were from the various non-Labor parties, because they changed their name over the course of the century.
Conservative parties.
Conservative parties.
Yeah, yeah.
The other 3 began their careers in the Labor Party and ended up, by the end of them, on the Conservative side.
Oh, they switched sides, okay.
They switched sides. So
and always in a Conservative direction?
Yes.
Or those 3?
Those 3.
Yep.
Joe Lyons was one of them. Billy Hughes. So Labor true believers would call them rats or defectors, and Conservatives would say that they saw the light. So very much a bipartisan spread. You also, interestingly, had Conservative Prime Ministers. The 2 best examples are probably Stanley Melbourne Bruce, the PM in the 20s, and Malcolm Fraser, very much steeped in a sort of noblesse oblige Presbyterianism, who went very much to the left in later life.
Did you get to speak with Malcolm Fraser or any of the living Prime Ministers, past or present?
I've spoken with 3 of them. I've spoken with Gough Whitlam, with Kevin Rudd, and with John Howard.
Okay. Who do you think, out of all these Prime Ministers that you've looked at, has the most fascinating story from a faith point of view, and perhaps the most underappreciated? Just quickly.
Keating.
Really?
Yes. When I started my research, I assumed he was just sort of a tribal Catholic, so he might have been raised in a formal Catholic sense, but didn't really take it seriously. I've concluded that his Catholicism, as he understood it, absolutely basic to his personality, and to understand what he did in politics, what drove him in politics, in terms of social justice, in terms of social conservatism, and in terms of his attitudes to the military and economic reform. And going right to the very beginning of the century, Alfred Deakin, our second Prime Minister and probably the founding father of Federation.
Okay.
And a deeply religious man. He wrote hundreds of private prayers, works of theology.
Wow.
He almost became a minister of religion a couple of times. And it's clear he was driven by a sense of mission. His aim was to make Australia a Christ-like country.
A lot of people are uncomfortable with that sort of idea today. I've often heard it said in mainstream media that people want a politician's faith to remain a private matter, and they don't want them sort of flipping to the book of Ephesians when it comes to answering a difficult policy problem. Is that an accurate expectation of our politicians?
I think it's certainly true that Australians are uncomfortable with very overt expressions of Christianity. Mm. John Howard's made that point and made it again to me when I spoke to him. But I'm not sure what people really mean when they say they're uncomfortable with recourse to the Bible, for example, is that they happen to disagree with the policy outcome in relation to that particular issue.
You don't think people are just uncomfortable with the idea of a politician referring to an ancient holy book to form policy, regardless of the outcome of that policy?
Some people are. Certainly the secular left, which dominates the media in this country, is very suspicious. But I'm not sure that the wider community is. I think there's still very great respect for the churches and for the Bible out in the wider community. And one thing I cite in the book is this, the fact that Kevin Rudd was, according to opinion polls in his first term, the most popular Prime Minister we've ever had.
Wow.
His approval ratings were up in the 60s and even the 70s. And I make the argument that it was because Rudd had made a conscious effort not to hide his Christianity. So even conservative people...
They're warm to him because of that.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Now, they may not have voted for him, of course, but they at least had that sort of affinity. And I'm a bit worried that in his second term he's shying back from that. He's really said almost nothing about his faith since.
Well, certainly asylum seeker policy is one issue that a lot of people are saying, where's the Christianity in that? I mean,
Well, I'm personally disappointed. But Tony Abbott too, I think, has become very bashful about any mention of his Catholicism. I mean, it's painted by some of his hostile critics as a real minus. But again,
the mad monk, they call
the
him.
Mad Monk, Captain Catholic, and all this sort of business.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we finish, Roy, elections coming up. Will the politicians' faith be influencing your vote?
Yes. I'll certainly be most interested in what they have to say, if anything, about Christianity. I mean, to be honest, I've probably already made up my mind in terms of party political loyalties, but nothing's set in stone. So I'll be looking for it, and I'm sure a lot of Christians around Australia will be as well. As I say, I think it was a key factor in 2007. And in fact, there's a lot of empirical evidence that suggests Rudd Labor got its biggest swings in seats with high proportions of evangelical Christian voters, mainly Protestant, especially in Queensland. And that's the constituency Julia Gillard lost, fairly or unfairly. Sure. That's the 5 or 6% that has come back to Labor. I think this factor is really underappreciated in the secular media.
Well, thanks so much for the history lesson, Roy. Where can we pick this book up? In God They Trust? You can get it certainly at Coorong and at Christian bookshops. It's going into secular bookshops. It's in Dymocks. Okay. It's in local independent bookshops, and you can get it online through the Bible Society of Australia. Okay. Well worth a read. I recommend it. Thanks very much for your time, Roy. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Kent. Great to talk to you. I tell you what, Dora, getting that guy down to a series of short television sound bites was a huge challenge. He knows his stuff. He really knows his stuff. Yeah. And he's so passionate about his topic. It was hard to shut him up, really.
Well, I guess if you've got that much to say about something, you should write a book about it.
Well, yeah, and that's what he did, of course. Yeah. Well worth a read if you're even a little bit interested in that kind of thing.
Awesome. Well, it's time for a break now. Don't go away. We'll be back in a minute. Hi, welcome back. Now, this next segment we're going to see deals with a topic that not many GPs get into with their patients, even though most of us could do with the advice.
Let's take a look.
Here we are, once more, yes, and we've got a good topic today. It's generated by an article which occurred just a couple of days ago in the British Medical Journal, which is, of course, a world-famous journal, almost as good as the American ones, not as good as the Australian one, of course. And the journal is stressing, doctors who read these journals, hopefully, stressing the need or the recommendation that they spend a little bit of time each time they see a patient. Most folks see their GP once a year. Majority of folks do, some twice, some 3 times, but once a year. And it's urging the doctors to spend anywhere from 3 or 4 or 5 up to 10 minutes, if possible, more likely 3 or 4 minutes, pointing out to the patient the desirability. This is quite apart from what the consultation is about. The desirability of trying to get some exercise every day.
But surely this isn't necessary in Australia. I mean, we're a sporting nation. We've got great weather. People are out and about.
I know. So
you really need a doctor to tell you that?
Well, the doctor spends half his time sitting down advising people. He's sitting on his rump also. He should be able to do exactly the same thing.
Right.
And they claim that if the doctor spends even 3 minutes once a year trying to motivate the person, whoever they are, to get some exercise every day if they possibly can, that will take effect and they'll remember for up to 6 months, and a majority of people will do something about it.
And what kind of benefits do you get from physical exercise?
Well, the benefits are you are a healthier person, improved circulation, and the sort of person who benefit most are folk with high blood pressure, overweight, depression, and some of these chronic illnesses which half the population is suffering from in some form or other. Get some exercise, and that will improve the blood circulation, and that in due course makes you a healthier person. And of course, the walking helps reduce your weight, which helps reduce the risk of diabetes, which helps reduce the risk of all the horrible things that causes. So just 3 minutes or 4 minutes a day, if doctors can be bothered to tell their patients, the patient listens, activates it, that they will be a better person, reduce their illness impact on themselves and the family and everybody else, and they'll be better persons, and their illnesses won't be quite as bad. So there you are.
So maybe a few less minutes in our day watching sports on TV, watching the cricket and the tennis and the footy, and actually out there playing it.
Well, during the ad break, get out there and have a game of cricket in the lounge room with your kids, or something, or do some exercise and push-ups or whatever. So that's the recommendation. And gardening and walking and cycling were the 3 exercises they recommended. So there you go.
Now, my wife tells me that vacuuming is pretty good too.
What a good idea.
She tells me maybe I should get some exercise doing it.
Absolutely. All good stuff. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as you get the body moving.
Good advice. Have you taken it again? How much exercise do you do?
Oh, nowhere near as much as I should, Dora. I mean, I do try to get in a game of basketball once a week and maybe walk the dogs a couple of times. But honestly, part of the problem is that when I probably most need exercise, you know, when I'm feeling depressed or lethargic or whatever, I just feel like curling up in a corner and eating junk food instead.
Well, you need to snap out of it, Kingston.
Oh, come on.
Seriously, sometimes you just have to push through.
Oh, you're probably right. Time for an ad break now. We'll be back in a sec.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Now, the next interview has sparked more debate from YouTube users than anything else on our YouTube channel.
Oh, sure has.
Is it possible that there's a connection between traditional Chinese writing and the ancient stories of the Bible?
Yeah, okay. You be the judge. Well, you might not realise that in Australia, the second most spoken language at home, after English, of course, is actually Mandarin. So yeah, in Australia we have a lot of people of Chinese descent, and to help us understand perhaps some really effective ways to reach these people with the gospel is Pastor Sammy Lee. Welcome.
Thank you.
I understand that you work with a lot of different cultural groups, don't you, and people from a lot of different religions.
That's right, yes.
And we're only talking about one small section of what you do today. But the fascinating thing that you've been telling me is how far back Chinese history actually goes. I mean, we all know it's ancient, but how far back?
Well, according to the Chinese historian, they had their the history starting in actually the year 2500 BC.
Wow. So just so that our viewers can get their heads around what that means, what was happening in Bible times then?
In Bible time, according to Bishop Usher, the very well accepted was the religious or Christian historian.
Yes.
The flood happened in the year 2348 BC. So that's only about 150 years different.
Before Chinese history kicks off.
So according to them, that is earlier, 150 years. But for sure, they said that there was a kingdom already in China, 2205 BC, which is 142 years after the flood. So you see that is not contradictory to the Bible history.
Before Abraham, sometime between the flood and Abraham, we have Chinese legend becoming Chinese history and recorded history, and we can start to see reliable dates. Well, that's really old.
Yes. It is old.
That is incredibly old. And are there legends and history from those times that sort of match up with stories that we read in the Bible or have some crossover?
Yes. They talk about their ancestor of the Chinese people or the Han people, which is actually they call the Yellow King. Huang Di means Yellow King or Yellow Emperor.
Okay.
And according to them, this Yellow Emperor was the ancestor of all the Chinese people.
Okay.
And so we studied about the characteristic and the life of these people described and the names of these people, we can see that it corresponds with the children of Noah.
Wow. That old?
Yes.
That's incredible. Now, so far as writing is concerned, I mean, obviously we know Hebrew and, Paleo-Hebrew is some of the earliest forms of writing. What about Chinese? Where do Chinese characters come from?
The Chinese character, according to the archaeological discoveries in a province called Anhui, there is now a museum of ancient arts, and it has been proven that characters must have started at the latest is an 1800 BC.
Wow.
Which is about the same time as the other ancient characters like Sumerian or Babylonian and Egyptians.
Wow, so when the cuneiform and the hieroglyphs and all that
that's right, yes.
Chinese writing was coming...
The same character. They are actually a pictograph. They are drawings of simple things and stories. So it becomes the first communication, a way of communication between the people during those days.
Now, something really interesting that you've been saying, Pastor Sammy, is that these characters actually tell stories that even surprise Chinese people today about some of the stories they tell and how they cross over with the biblical narrative. Can you share just maybe 3 of those characters? We've got some paper here for you to do a little bit of Chinese writing for us.
Yes.
Because I'd be really interested to see how this works.
All right. Now, like for instance, the word, this one is word Chao.
Chao? And what does Chao mean? Sorry if I said Chao wrong.
Chao is to create or to make.
Okay. Okay.
No.
So here we have Chao. Okay, to create or make. So what's this made up of?
Now, this one is an abbreviation of breath.
Breath.
Breath or breathe, that is the same breath. Okay, that one. And this one, sorry, it's not that one. This one is this is breath.
Okay.
And this one is earth.
Earth.
Earth, yes.
Oh, breath and earth.
Yes. Yes. And this
so
one
in
is
Genesis,
yes.
we have the story
Of creation.
that God formed man out of the dirt and breathed the breath of life.
And this one is a walking person. Can you see that? There's a head
yeah.
there.
There's
It's
a walking two legs.
Yes. So that means walking or moving. So in other words, to the Chinese, the word create means earth added with breath.
Yes.
It becomes a mouth. Mouth
Oh,
means
this square is a mouth,
It's
isn't
a
it?
mouth, you see?
And
which also means person.
Yeah, so a mouth is a symbol for a person.
Yes, so he becomes a person that is moving right away, walking. That means there is animation there.
Wow. So God breathed the breath of life into
this
a man that
piece of earth, which is he made from the piece of earth.
And he made a living, walking
and he made
soul.
A walking.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That is amazing. Okay, well, you got another one for us?
Yes. All right. And then when and God created Eve.
Yes.
This one is a garden. Now look at that. That one is the earth, right?
Yes.
Earth. And underneath the earth is a mouth. Means become a person. And that person is the first person. And from the side of the first person comes the second person.
From the side. So Eve being formed out of the rib of Adam.
That's right. And this one is Yuan. Yuan is meaning garden.
Garden.
Yes.
So the Chinese character for garden.
For garden is earth.
Yeah.
Mouth means you become a human being, or can also means that God used his mouth to create the first human being, and the second one coming from this, and this is happening in the garden called the Garden of Eden.
So the Chinese character for the word garden has this Garden of Eden story in there.
That's right.
That's incredible. One more.
Yes. And then the devil comes to tempt them. God said, all right, look, that is 2 trees, right?
Two trees.
In the past, the tree is like that.
Yes.
Okay, there is the roots.
Oh, yes.
There's the leaves,
branches,
and then there's the bud going up.
Yes.
And that is the earth.
The ground.
Okay,
yes.
ground. So 2 trees, and underneath means chin is to prohibit. Don't do this, don't do that. Yeah, okay, to prohibit.
Prohibit.
No smoking, no parking. They use this same character.
So in English we would use this.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that is 2 trees, and this is the character for God. 2 trees, God underneath it is the first prohibition. Don't eat that one.
Wow, so the tree of life, the tree of good and evil,
That's
knowledge
right.
of good and evil.
But then, what happened if you put like that? That is again the 2 trees,
yes.
And underneath is a woman. This is, this means land. Land means greedy, covetous.
Greedy?
Yes. So that
so
is
you had
Eve.
the story of Eve.
It is the story of Eve.
Wow.
Looking at these 2 trees, God said, don't eat that one. You may eat this one. But he was so greedy, she wanted the one that is prohibited too.
Can we look at one more just before we finish?
Yes.
Salvation, I think, is one you really wanted to share with us.
Yes. So that was sin. Because of that sin, tempted by the devil, and so they have to die. But then, because sin, you see, transgression. So this one is lamb. This one is I or me. And that is ye is righteousness.
Righteousness.
Yeah.
So the Chinese character for righteousness includes a symbol of a lamb in it?
Yes. And this is amazing. It includes lamb, and there is also a cross in it.
A cross and a lamb in the symbol for righteousness.
Yes. Wow. And but here it is only a lamb. But there are two special characters that is talking about righteousness, about salvation, about Jesus, about his death, redeeming, all these things. But look at this. This word I or me consists of actually two parts. That one is a hand. Okay?
Yes.
And this one on the right is an ancient spear or lance.
Oh, like a trident sort of thing, yeah.
Right. So the lamb is killed to give us righteousness, and I am the hand that killed that lamb.
Wow. So this is like Jesus, the holy Lamb of God, on the cross, being speared with a cross.
By my sin.
But this character was actually invented before Jesus died on the cross.
Yes.
So it's actually prophetic.
Far before Jesus.
It's a prophetic character.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Look, that is really powerful. It's powerful for me, and I'm not a Chinese person, and I don't speak Chinese.
Yes.
How do Chinese people respond when you present some of these things to them?
Well, they could not believe. They are amazed, and if they are honest, then they have to realize. In the past, they always say that the Christianity is a foreign devil religion from the West.
Yes.
But we prove it to them that no, your ancestors were the first ones before even Abraham in worshiping the Creator God.
Wow, wow. And they use the expression Shangdi from ancient times, the Emperor of Heaven.
Yes, Shangdi means the sovereign who is above. Ti is emperor, you see, and Shang means above. So he's the emperor above all others.
The king above all kings.
The king above all kings, yes.
Well, those are incredible insights, just to see that the story of God, the story of Jesus is woven into, not just, Western history and culture, but also through Chinese, which we used to think of as being, very foreign and strange. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audience has really had their minds opened, about the way God's been working all through these centuries. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Pastor Sam.
It's my pleasure.
He was a really great guy to interview, Dora, and the evidence he presented was just so fascinating. But let me tell you, it's only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it. I've done a little bit of reading on the topic. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and it's just like one piece of the puzzle that, makes us realize the Bible is so much more than just a bunch of old Jewish stories, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like our time is up for this week. Thanks so much for joining us on the couch.
And don't forget that you can see this episode again on our website, infocus.org.au. Check it out.
All the best for the coming week. Look after yourself, and God bless.